Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining in as we explain the financial report that was handed out last week and take any questions that you might have. You can't see me, but it's Father Craig, the voice of Father Craig, and I'm just doing some of the IT stuff, and I'll be the one reading your questions. So if you do have any questions, just post them in the chat there. If you're at if you're at stjoes.online.church, and we'll read them there. You can put them in the chat. I'll read them and relay them. And we have with us here this evening Michael, who is going to be sharing some insights in the report and taking questions and just explaining some of the numbers that you see, the numbers that you see there. So I welcome him now to begin.
Hello, my name is Michael Sullivan, and thank you for joining us. The purpose of this meeting is first to review the 2019 results, and then to look at the 2020 year-to-date, and then to give you, the parishioners, the opportunity to ask any questions that you may have, and open it up to if there's any, we'll call it discussion. Just to feel free then to use, as Father Craig says, to use the chat box and put in your questions. And so let's begin then by looking at 2019. Now, if you go to the parish website, or if you received the e-bulletin, then you would have seen a link to the 2019 statements. Now, there's two statements. There's one simplified statement, and that has some graphs on it and some bar charts, and that shows some of the, basically the summary amounts. And so we'll take a look at that first. Now, when you look at that, you'll see that there's 3 years, and of all the numbers that are on here, there's probably, the most important number would be the offertory. And you can see the offertory for 2019 was 292,000 versus 308 versus 310. So there's a decrease there of about 16,000 year over year. If you look down below, you'll see operating excess revenue, $8,799. And so that's the surplus for the year. The St. Joseph's Parish, historically, at least for the last 11 or 12 years, has operated at a surplus, and last year was no different. The surplus was less than the year before, but we still managed to run a surplus. You'll see that it shows operating and it shows capital. You will know capital from the Looney Tunes collection. So capital means equipment, building, could be the roof, the kitchen, the hall, the bathrooms, anything that's larger in nature that's not repairs and maintenance. Anything that's repairs and maintenance is part of operating. So capital is basically funded through our Looney Tunes, and any special, any donations that are designated towards something that's capital. You'll see that the capital for the year is a deficit of 62,000, and the prior year a deficit of 30,000. That shouldn't be any a concern, because we save up capital for some years and then we spend it in other years. So now I'm going to turn and look at the detailed report, because it provides more than just the summary that's here. So looking at the detailed report, if we go to the statement of operations, then the next page. You'll see, again, there's the offertory, the decrease, the 292 versus the 308. Most of the amounts on here are somewhat similar to the prior year. There's a few, though, that changed significantly. Of course, the offertory. Then you'll see the youth, children, and sacramental, and that was down. Now, that includes the dances, which is kind of like a fundraiser, but it's towards youth, and the sacramental programs, which of course is the First Communion and the Confirmation. And that typically runs at a surplus, mostly because of the dances. For the year, the surplus for youth, children, and sacramental was approximately $5,000. And the prior year, the surplus was $16,000. All three of those categories, the dances especially, and First Communion and Confirmation, were all down. So that was a negative $16,000 on a net basis. And if you look in the expenses, you'll see that the largest expense is wages. And wages are actually down by 5,000 over the prior year. The next number below that's the cathedraticum. That's the diocesan assessment, the amount is sent to the diocese. And that was up by $5,000. Right below there, office, rectory, and sundry, 46,000 versus 35. That was an increase of 11,000. So that was one of the significant increases. That does include some of the spending that was related to the kindred spirits bathroom, about $4,000. So you could probably back that out, but it isn't including this number. This is an increase of 11,000. And then down below in the maintenance repairs, there's an increase there of $4,000. So if you look just at the bigger numbers then, the offertory is down by 16,000. The youth, children's sacramental are down by 16,000. Taken together, those two are 32,000. And then the increase in expenses, the office, rectory, sundry, and the cathedraticum of another 15,000 is 47,000. And that explains most of the decrease in the year from a surplus of the prior year of 51,000 to a surplus of 8,000 or 8,799. Looking down below, you can see the cash position then of the operating fund, and which is at the end of the year 17,000. So we began the year with 32,000, and we have in the past few years transferred funds to the Emergency Reserve Fund. The Emergency Reserve Fund are the term deposits that are held by the parish with the diocese. And you can see that that's gone up in the last 2 years by about $18,000, which we've had added. So at the end of the year, the Emergency Reserve Fund is $116,000. So taken together, the Emergency Reserve Fund and the operating is $134,000. If we look at the next page, you can see the bingo account. And the bingo had a very good year, and the net surplus on the bingo was just over $18,000. And there was approximately $18,000 spent in the year, and the note shows there that went towards the dishwasher. But what's significant is at the end of the year, the bingo has a surplus of just over $50,000. Now that's typically used for capital, meaning things like the dishwasher. And so that's $50,000 that's on hand. And if you look at the top part of the page, you'll see that's the property improvement fund and the donations for the Looney Tooney, which is down about $2,000 over the prior year. And you'll see that the spending this year was $88,000, the prior year $58,000. So there was a deficit in the year of $62,000. However, we started the year with $172,000. So at the end of the year, we still have $110,000. So the $110,000 plus the bingo down below at $51,000 means that for capital, we have $161,000 at the beginning of the year, which is very significant. That's the operations and the capital results for 2019. All in all, the parishioners of St. Joseph's have been very generous in supporting the parish, and we, as a parish, are in a very healthy financial position as at year end. And it's interesting because we have established this emergency reserve fund, which we've been adding to. We are now in an emergency. So it's really, says something about the parishioners of St. Joseph's that we have been able to save money over the years because we never know what we may need it for. You remember many years ago we had a roof that leaked and we had to raise money very quickly. So now we have a fund which we're able to draw on in this time of need. I'm going to now turn towards the 2020 year to date. And there is no slide for this, but recently the Finance Committee met because we were very concerned about the situation with our finances. Most of the expenses continue, and although there is a reduction in some of the wage expense, for the most part, the work is continuing to be done. We had calculated that probably our estimate for 2020 that had the virus not happened, that there was probably going to be a deficit for the year of between $5,000 to $10,000, and I'm talking about operating, not capital, between $5,000 to $10,000. We weren't terribly concerned with that because, as I said, in the past, the parishes typically run surpluses. So we do have funds that are saved up. So if we have a year that's at a deficit, we can manage that. However, then this virus happened, and that's changed everything. Because in the past, most of the offertory has come from the Sunday collection. And of course, that, for the most part, that doesn't exist anymore. If you look at January and February, the average weekly collection was $5,418. Of note, we need to break even approximately $5,550. So we were running, as I said, we had projected a deficit for the year, but again, it wasn't very large. Now, out of that $5,418, what's very interesting is that approximately 40% of that came from pre-authorized, or e-giving, pre-authorized payments, and 60% came from the Sunday regular non-pre-authorized collection. Now, of course, that's largely been lost. If we look at the period since the virus has started and since the churches were shut down, it's reversed. And we had weekly an average of $3,289 that was non-pre-authorized, and that's gone down now to, for April, which is a full month, $1,031. So that's a decline then, and I'm talking about the non-pre-authorized, of $2,258. You can imagine then $2,258 times 52 weeks is a lot. That would be a staggering deficit for the year. Interesting though, the pre-authorized has been very significant. The pre-authorized weekly amount for April, the average weekly was $2,116, which compared to $2,129 was only a decrease of $13 per week. So that's been very important to continue the financial health of the parish. I'm going to come back to the e-giving, but for those, thank you to all those who have continued to drop off their envelopes and continue with their weekly non-pre-authorized support. We had projected, as I said, a deficit for the year between $5,000 and $10,000. Now, once the virus, hit and the church was closed, we had to revise that number. And the initial revision of that, the estimate was the deficit of between $35,000 to $40,000 for the year. Now, we do qualify for some of the government subsidy, and the largest subsidy is the 75% wage subsidy. As you saw, that wages is the largest component of our expenses, and the wages, for the most part, continue to be paid. That wasn't, by the way, just a parish decision, that was a diocesan decision, in part because the 75% of the wages are being covered by the special subsidy. And also, it's important that we keep our staff, that we keep them on wage, on salary, so that we retain them so when the church does open up again. And as I say, they are continuing to work. So the good news is because we qualified for that wage subsidy, that, as I said, that our forecast deficit for the year would be between $35,000 to $40,000. Now, something very significant happened in the last maybe week or two, and that's the subsidy program was expanded. Originally, it was for March, April, May, and now it's for June, July, and August. That is very significant because that is worth approximately $8,000 per month. It works out to, over the 3 months, to $25,000. Now, I said that we projected a deficit of possibly $40,000 for the year. We can now take off, the assumption or estimate would be another $25,000. So our deficit for the year is likely now going to be $15,000. In other words, it's very manageable. So we're in a very good position because of the subsidy, and I would say because of the past support, very generous support of the parishioners of St. Joseph's. Lastly, I would want to maybe just turn to the e-give enrollment and change form. So Father Craig has modified this form and simplified it. The enrollment, the change, and the withdrawal are all on one form, and it's made it very easy now. So perhaps you could consider this as a way of ongoing support of the parish. Father Craig has also prepared a pamphlet called Supporting Our Parish with eGive. And there's questions in there about how the process works. It's one of the frequently asked questions. And so that's not on the display here. But if you go to the parish website, you can find it there. I would also maybe mention at this time too that if you're not receiving the e-bulletins, then go to the website and sign up for it. The e-bulletin is somewhat now, it's to replace the ordinary paper bulletin, and it comes out once a week, and it's very useful because it tells of all the programs that are going on, the Mass times, and things like this financial report and forms and things like that. So that is the report that I intended to give, and so I would open up now to any questions and that you might have. And not just questions, it's also suggestions and any ideas that you would have too. So this is your parish, and we'd like to hear from you as to what you think. And maybe lastly, I'd like to thank the members of the Parish Finance Committee who meet regularly throughout the year. And so thank you for their volunteer effort. So I'll open up to questions now or any comments.
Yeah, great. So we've got one question that's come in here. And the question goes, what has the church done to ask parishioners who are not on e-giving?
Well, maybe Father Craig, you could answer that. And you heard from the numbers about the staggering drop. So it has, I would say, it has been mentioned in the homilies, or at least it's not the homilies, but the announcements at Mass, that there are ways. So some parishioners are using the door, and there's a mail slot there. But I think part of the concern is because so many people have been adversely affected, people have lost their jobs, and there is, I think, concern about asking, parishioners for financial support. But you do raise a good question, because at least from those who do have the ability, then it would make sense. Then how do they know? So I don't know, Father Craig, if you'd have something to add to that.
Yeah, sure. So, I have been mentioning it a couple of weekends, and we've also, one of the things we've been doing is trying to make it easy for people who want to give. And right from the website now, people can give through Canada Helps, either a one-time payment or sign up for, or a one-time offering, or sign up for regular offerings. Also getting the e-give registration form, that's on the site as well. So all someone has to do is fill that in, attach a blank check, a void check, and they can even email that completed form in. They can scan and email it in, or drop it off through the mail slot, and not a blank check, a void check. Yeah, attach a void check to the form and send that to us in any way you so wish. So we're trying a few things just to make it easier to give. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's the big one, and also just making people aware of different ways that they can still support their parish. No, that's a wonderful question.
And if you have any suggestion that you'd like to make towards that, what would you do?
Just before we conclude, are there any other great questions? Great. So we have another question came in. What would our elderly parishioners Would our elderly parishioners go to the website? Should they be telephoned? I think I can answer this one here. We have, right now we have some staff and volunteers who are calling around to our elderly parishioners to make sure that they are still involved in the life of the parish. Now, there's certainly not a request being made to them to give. That's not part of what's happening at all. But we're letting them know that we're praying for them. And if they ask, "Oh, how can I support my parish?" Then certainly those who are calling around are equipped to answer those kinds of questions and to even walk with them along making that adjustment too. So that's the way that's done. If someone were to call and say, "Oh, I'd like to even sign up for eGive, I just don't have internet," we can mail out a form to them as well. The website is the easiest, but for those who don't, they can call, and we do have some people calling around to people, not to ask for that, but to let them know that we're still praying for them. No, that's a great question too. Michael, do you have anything to add to that?
No, again, just to say thank you to the parishioners of St. Joseph's, because I think that this is a very charitable, very generous community. The parishioners have, all through the years that I've been involved, since 2008, on the finance committee, that whenever there's been a need, the parishioners of St. Joseph's have stepped up and always met that need. And so we're very grateful for all of your support. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions to come in? All right, well, before we conclude, I just have a lot of thanks to give. I'd like to thank the members of the Finance Council. They've been doing a fantastic job of advising me, especially as one, I came from Millbrook, where we were counting pennies, and it's not a practice that we have to do here at all. And that's thanks to a very generous group of people in the parish, as well as a great finance committee that is really doing a wonderful job of overlooking the gifts that you people, that everyone is bringing here to the church and setting before God. So thank you very much to them. I want to thank everyone who has been giving both during this time, before this pandemic, and even before my arrival too. It's ensured that if I do lose any sleep at night, it's not over money. So thank you everyone for being so generous in that way. Thanks again. If you're not on eGive, I'd just encourage you to consider that. I use it myself. It's just I don't carry a lot of cash around on me, and it's just so convenient. And also, just from my own faith perspective, I find that by signing up for eGive, I'm sure to put giving to God first before anything else in my life. So it's helped me with that rather than giving out of a surplus. I give to God regardless of knowing what expenses are going to be from month to month. And then I do supplement that with Canada Helps for much of my giving too. But the eGive is certainly, I find very convenient that way. Yeah. So Michael, I don't know if you have any other comments?
No, that's everything.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I think it's time for barbecue, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Goodbye, and thank you for joining us.